Welcome to Golic Smetty.
I'm Mike Golic.
I'm Jessica Smetana. Welcome to another edition of Golic and Smetty. I'm Jessica Smetana. Mike Golic is still out on assignment. He's on the West Coast calling football games, living his best life, so he's not here today. And instead, we have a guest on, a very special guest, I should say, one of my nearest and dearest friends, but he's also a college football reporter for ESPN. He's the host of Countdown to GameDay, which is on every Saturday morning before college game day. He's a sideline reporter for ESPN. He's on Around the Horn like twice a week. Harry, Lyles Jr., what else do you do? I feel like you're always on my TV screen.
I play some Call of Duty and Fortnite here and there, but other than that, I'm
are
working.
Are you still able to play Call of Duty and Fortnite during the college football season? Because when
Not
would
really,
you even
no.
have time for that?
Yeah, no, not if I'm doing the job right, which I am. So no, I have not played in a while. This is the video game off season for me. So
okay. Do your friends miss you? Do they like text you like, hey, when are you gonna be back?
yeah, well, it's always like, hey, can anybody play? And it's like, yeah, I'm in Greenville, North Carolina, or this week it'll be Huntington, West Virginia. So
All right. Well, we're not going to talk about Call of Duty or Fortnite today because I'm only vaguely familiar with both concepts, but we are going to talk about college football, obviously. But first, there's a lot of things that I wanted to talk to you about, Harry, because like we chat like often, like we text a lot, like we're friends, we hang out whenever we can. Like I just saw you at the Notre Dame Ohio State game because you were there for game day a few weeks ago. But one thing that we have not talked enough about is the fact that a pop culture thing happened this year that I feel like you are the only person that is qualified. You and I maybe are the only people qualified to talk about, which is that. And if Mike Golic Sr. is listening to this, he's not going to have a clue what the hell I'm talking about. But this is why I had you on. 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, we saw a musical together on Broadway, the SpongeBob musical. Yes. They made SpongeBob into a musical. Do you remember seeing the SpongeBob musical, Harry?
I do, and it was great.
It was great. And the lead SpongeBob actor was phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like,
100%.
You agree. Impressive, great dancer, great singer, like, tremendous lead role as SpongeBob. Yeah, nominated for Tonys. This was a big deal, folks. Earlier this year, that guy was in the news because he's in a movie with Ariana Grande that is being filmed right now, and allegedly they are now dating. And this is like, Ariana Grande has dated some like very famous dudes, and this guy is like, most people, if you haven't seen the SpongeBob musical, don't know who he is. This was like, I immediately had to text you because what the hell? The SpongeBob is now dating Ariana Grande, and mind you, she was in a relationship. I think she was either married or engaged, and he was married and had a child with his wife, and now they are together.
Yes, which all of that was extremely surprising to me for a number of reasons. I think, if I'm being quite honest, like the most glaring one is just the fact that, and this is just me judging a book by its cover, like he just doesn't seem like the guy that would like leave his wife and then also pull Ariana Grande. Period. It's kind of just like that simple for me.
He's like he is a theater kid, right? I think that's a fair thing to say. And I'm not saying that as like a derogatory descriptor, but like he is, to me, the embodiment of SpongeBob on stage.
He really is. Like, they could not have cast him better. Like, that guy, like, if SpongeBob was a human being, it's this, what's his name again?
Ethan Slater. He's like,
Ethan Slater, yes.
I think if you're like a theater person, which I'm not really, I love musicals, but I'm not like in the theater world, this guy, like he's been around. I don't think he performed at the Tonys the year that they were nominated, but I think Squidward might have performed. Again, like this is something, Harry, that like I feel like only you and I are qualified to talk about. And it was like the shock of my life. And apparently they are still together as of today. So
it's still, I remember, I think I was in Miami when you found that out. And you had to clarify it for me like 2 or 3 times because I was like, wait, are we talking about the same person?
Yes.
Like it was that jaw-dropping.
SpongeBob and Ariana Grande are together, and that's how I wanted to start the show. So, just an absolutely incredible time to be alive. Yeah, I hope they're happy together. You are a college football reporter, yes, but you're also a baseball Nostradamus because you're the only person, and you live in Atlanta, you grew up in Atlanta, you're a Braves fan, you're unfortunately a Falcons fan. You're the only person who was not super high on the Braves going into the postseason. So tell me what the hell happened, and we will dedicate the next 10, man, maybe we'll give baseball 5 minutes on this. We don't
Yeah.
normally give baseball much time on the show, but we'll give baseball 5 minutes.
No.
Tell us what happened to the Braves, and maybe give us a prediction on what else is going to happen in this postseason.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need long. Things look, it's like twofold, okay? Like one, things were going too well, right? And that's not even just like a Braves thing, that's just generally an Atlanta sports thing, which I
Yeah,
think a lot of people felt like after Atlanta United won a title, I think that was 2018, and then the Braves got theirs a couple of years ago. They were like,
that was the
"Oh,
year we
like,
saw SpongeBob also.
it was. There's like, oh, the Olympic curse is over, right? Because a lot of people think like Atlanta's been cursed ever since we hosted the Olympics, whatever. But things were going too well. And the narrative with the Braves all season was, oh, well, if they just add one more arm, they should be good. Because growing up, like the Braves always won games 1-0, 2-1, like 3-2, 3-1, whatever. Didn't really score a lot of runs. And then here they are this year scoring basically a touchdown a game, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. They're one of the best teams that has ever played baseball. Surely nothing could go wrong. And it's like, no, that is the exact reason why everything will go wrong. I remember, I think it was January. No, I guess it couldn't have been January because the season hadn't started. But was it April the last time I was in Miami? And I was telling Lee, or no,
I feel
it
like
was June. It was
I feel like
June.
it was okay. I think it was the
It was
4th of
June.
July.
Something like that. Yeah, you know what? I think it was 4th of July. And I
Okay.
was telling Lee, dude, I understand your pain as a Mets fan and things are going terrible for you right now. Let me tell you what is worse, having sky high expectations only for them to come crashing down. I said the only blank that we need to fill in here is who are the Braves going to lose to in the NLDS. And as soon as I saw the Phillies beat the Marlins, there it is. I didn't even watch a game of that series because I knew it was
Really?
crap. I didn't. I didn't
Ooh.
watch a game. Yeah. Yeah. I think
Explain
I
to
saw
me.
like the Austin Riley home run in game 2, and that was it.
Okay, well, first of all, explain to me the Olympic curse. I don't think I'm familiar with that. Is that where like the source of all this Atlanta sports angst comes from? Like, why would there be a curse
Yeah,
on you?
there's a faction of Atlanta sports fans that believe because the Braves won the World Series in 1995, right? That once we hosted the Olympics in 1996, like nothing great has happened since then, which like my counter argument is always like, all right, well, what are all of the great things short of the World Series in 95 that happened before then that made you think that we weren't cursed?
That's a good
You know what
point.
I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying the curse isn't real,
But
but also like,
there's not like a thing that started the curse. Cause like with the Cubs curse, it's that there was a guy who wasn't allowed to bring his goat into the game, and then there was like the curse of the Billy Goat. So there was like a thing that happened that everyone's like, oh, they're never gonna win a World Series ever again. There wasn't
yeah,
anything
like
like
we're
that. It
just
was just like you guys are all like traumatized by being not winners. So then you won something and you're like, we're never gonna win anything again. That's it.
yeah, basically. And also, like, it seems weird for me that the thing is like, oh my gosh, we were one of the, I mean, I guess depending on who you ask, like lucky cities to host the Olympics, right? Like, it still feels weird to me that this place like actually hosted an Olympics. But somehow a lot of people feel like that is the jumping off point for many, many years of
Hmm.
unlucky sports things, which like, hey, like just look in the past, right? Like even the Atlanta Falcons, like first 1,000-yard rusher did not get 1,000 yards because on his final carry of the season he lost 5 and he finished with 995. Like this is not new. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I just to me, I see it, but I also don't feel like it's a very strong argument to be made with the Olympic curse. But who am I?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So is the curse is not broken? Like they still think
Depend,
people still think there's a curse?
Depends on who you ask. I feel like a lot of people thought it ended with Atlanta United, and then a lot of people felt like it ended with the Braves 2 years ago,
I
and
feel
then
like
some
it should
people
end with
are
the Braves 2 years ago.
yeah. I mean, to me, I just generally again that's kind of why it's like, well, was there really ever a curse, or were we
Yeah.
just like another major American sports city that just doesn't win a lot?
You know what a major American sports city doesn't win a lot lately? Chicago. And they don't have a
Yeah,
curse. They just have a lot of incompetent
yeah. I was gonna say they
team
don't even lose
GMs.
well. You can like lose well, like they lose like poorly.
Yeah. I shouldn't complain. When I was like in high school, the Chicago sports had like a World Series and 3 Stanley Cup titles, and then the Sky won the WNBA title like 2 years ago. So I don't know. I think every sports. My point is, I think every sports town thinks that they are cursed, and in fact, like unless you're Boston, like you probably just are a normal sports town.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Which is annoying. So who's going to win the World Series then? Because the Phillies are up one game, I think, to the D-backs right now, and the Rangers are up 2 games to the Astros. I have absolutely no dog in this fight other than, no offense, I thought that what was going on with the Phillies and Braves series was kind of fun. I watched a couple games. There were a lot of runs. It was very exciting. Lots of home runs. That's as a not really a baseball fan anymore. That's all that entertains me at this point. I'm like, oh, look at that moonshot. So who's going to win the World Series?
My policy, with people is my same policy that I have with my sports teams. You can't really be disappointed if you like have realistic expectations. You know what I mean? So like I said, I didn't really watch the series because I was like, I know what time it is. So, I think the Phillies are going to beat the Rangers in the World Series.
Okay.
And that's what it's going to be. I don't know
if
how
that
many
happens,
games. Let's call it 6. We'll say 6 games.
If that happens, I am taking you to Vegas with me for the Super Bowl. We're putting in some future bets on next season because you are the only person who's like, the Braves, historically good offense. Trust me, hit the fan. And
yeah, bats go cold.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more sports fans with unrealistic expectations, which is just in general college football fandom. So we'll talk about that next. Okay, Harry, I mentioned that you are on the road doing Sideline and College Game Day every single weekend. Are you getting to the point in the season, it's like week 7 now, where you're like, oh my God, I have been traveling a lot?
Yes, but I also, I think, this is my 3rd year doing this. I'm used to it now. So like I've gotten pretty good at just like maintaining a good and healthy schedule, like both on the road and at home, to where like I've got my hydration down to like a science. Like I drink, I'm not even kidding. Like I drink 2 bottles.
Wait, what is the hydration plan for traveling and doing television shows?
So it's most important during the stretch of like Wednesday to Saturday morning, because that's where like I'm most active, and this matters less the further into the season that we go, because it's cooler outside. So
okay,
imagine this. So like the first game I did this season was here in Atlanta at Center Park Stadium. Excuse me, and it was 95 degrees at kickoff.
I'm in the Levitard Show studios. You get a fine for coughing if you're doing a show in this vicinity.
Honored. So it was 95 degrees at kickoff, okay? When you're on the sideline, if you're doing a good job, you're the eyes and ears on the field that like even the cameras aren't going to pick up, right? You're seeing things that they're not going to get, you're hearing things. So you're walking around that thing all the time almost. And so, when it's 95 degrees outside, and even if you're just walking, and I'm in like a suit and all that type of stuff like that, like I take my jacket off during the game because I'm not trying to die. But you lose hydration quickly. So before every game, I have 2 bottles of water. It's probably like, I would say, an hour before kick. I'll also have like a Celsius just for like an energy boost. And then at halftime, depending on what is in my cooler on the field, I'll have like a bottle of water, and then I'll chug 2 Gatorades.
Jeez.
And then at the end of the game, we have a post-game meal. I'll chug a bottle of water, and then I'll take 2 bottles of water with me to the hotel and have those before I go to sleep. And then the morning that I wake up, Friday, because Friday's my travel day for Saturday, I chug a bottle of water in the morning, which like I kind of do that anyways. Like you should, if you're listening to this, you should drink a glass of water when you wake up. It is very good for you before you even eat anything. Seriously, try it. So I do that. And then Saturday morning, same deal. 2 bottles of water. Well, bottle of water when I wake up, and then 2 bottles of water before the show, and a Celsius before the show, and then I'm good to go. And then after that,
this is crazy. Your show, for people who don't watch the show, you should watch it. It gets me pumped up every single Saturday. It starts at 8:30 Eastern time, and you're doing the show that time every week. So if you're in the Central Time Zone, you're starting at 7:30. If you're on the West Coast, like it's 5 in the morning, and you're drinking sometimes 3 water bottles before 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I mean, so for example, this past Saturday at Washington, I woke up at 2:20. So like I have a
Oh
bottle of water
God.
when I wake up. And then I'm doing my stuff. So like I got to campus, I would say probably by like 3:45,
It's so
and probably had
early.
my first bottle of water at 4 a.m. or second bottle of water, I guess, at 4 a.m. Had another one, and then had a Celsius before we went out there and did the show.
Okay, we
But
need to
you know,
talk
like I
about
exercise
we
a
need to
lot
talk
though.
about the
So like
Celsius. I know you, but like the way you're describing this is that it's a very physical experience for you because you are so like you
moving.
Monday and Tuesday you're usually home, right? And then you fly out either like Tuesday night or Wednesday, do your
Yes.
Thursday night game, fly to
Yep.
game day on Friday, do the
Yep.
Saturday morning show, and then you fly out either like Saturday night or Sunday back to Atlanta, right?
Yep.
So like you're essentially like you're 5 days of the week, you are just waking up, chugging water and Celsius. And I
Well,
mean,
not
it's
Celsius
just,
all the
it's
time.
sound okay.
I know better than that.
I don't get the deal with Celsius. I know it's like it's an energy drink, but it's carbonated. Like
Yeah.
how is it different than drinking a Red Bull? I do not understand it. Why not have a coffee?
Um, I don't crash the way I would if I were drinking a Red Bull. Like Red Bull, I first off, and I think Red Bull tastes like disgusting.
It is just yeah, it's like
Um, but like
rocket
no, Celsius,
fuel.
I just feel like alert. Like when I'm out there on the sideline, like I'm trying to click on all cylinders. Like I want to, I got to be quick on my toes, aware, all that type of stuff like that. So for me though, like I realized in flying, you lose hydration quicker on an airplane. And then sometimes, depending on where we're at, I have connecting flights. So I'm on two different flights. Like, and to me, just like the whole idea of going to the airport, all that, that's exhausting. Like that
It is
wears me out.
exhausting. Yeah.
So like, doing all that movement, like I know when I feel bad, like when I have not had enough water. Like I don't think most people like genuinely hydrate enough during a day. I just don't. Like people like are like, "Oh, I'm going to drink like 6 Diet Cokes in a day." Like, buddy, go see a doctor and then come back and tell me if that's good for you. Like
I
don't
feel
do
like
that.
that's a college football coach diet is just 6 Diet
Yeah.
Cokes or like 6 Celsiuses a day. I am just picturing you in the Delta Lounge at the Atlanta airport, like underneath the faucet, just chugging water out of their giant water jug. Like, I asked if you were sick of traveling, and you were like, no, because I drink 15 bottles of water a day. And that was just not an answer I was expecting.
Yeah, no, it's literally all about like, are you eating good? And I'm not talking about like a lot. I'm talking about like good, healthy food, which I would say I do most of the time. And are you hydrating? And if you're doing those two things, like that's really like half the battle. And then like I get my other, I would say 40% of my energy comes from just like I still have like a boyish love for this. Like as tired as I was, like my travel schedule this past weekend was terrible. Like I got
You,
45 minutes of sleep, I
oh
would
my God.
say Thursday to Friday night. And then
Were
when I
you at
traveled,
Memphis Thursday night? Which no, that was a Friday night
Greenville.
game. You were in Greenville, and
Yeah.
then you had to go
Yeah.
to Seattle for the
So
Washington
I
Oregon game day.
Yes. So after my game Thursday, I had to go back to the hotel, pack, drive an hour and a half to Raleigh. I got to Raleigh at 1:45, and then I remember still being awake, looking at my clock in the hotel, and it was 3:15, and I woke up at 4 to get on my flight from Raleigh to Seattle. And so for as exhausted as I was this weekend, all is good when I walk into that stadium and I get to watch some football, or when we're getting ready to do the show and everybody's like excited at
You feed
5
off the
a.m.
energy. Yeah.
I feed off the energy and I'm good to go.
Who has had the best energy from the game day locations you've been to? Because this year you've already been to two of, I mean, a lot of really good games. Washington, Oregon is being billed as like the game of the year. There's a lot of good football left. So, like, I want to wait and see if anything can top that, including like potential rematch in the conference championship. Who knows? But you were also at the Notre Dame Ohio State game.
Hmm.
Last year you said you enjoyed the Montana game that you went to. So can you do like a definitive top 5 of the best
Ooh,
game day atmospheres or the best game day locations?
dang, that's tough. It's funny. I was actually saying this past Saturday at Washington, and I don't think I'm being a prisoner in the moment with this. I think that might have been the best crowd that we've had in the 3 years that I've done this. I
Really?
genuinely do feel like that. Like, not only were there a lot of people, because there's some places you go and there's a lot of people and they're not hype. Like, those people were hype. And so I won't call out the places where there was a lot of people and they weren't hype.
I know,
So
because college football fans will,
and
like,
they will, yeah, they won't let me live it
they'll
down. Which
cut
like
this,
not
they'll, like, post it on,
yeah
like, a message board, and you will never see
yeah
happiness ever again.
yeah. Which like not my problem, y'all's. But um, App State's got to be in there. Like that one was really cool
Was
last
that for the
year.
Troy App State game?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and that Hail Mary to win it.
Yeah.
So that one was really cool. Um,
Maybe put that
man,
number
who else was really
5.
hype?
Washington number 1. We have to fill in the middle of the top 5 list. Where do you rank
Let's
Notre Dame, since this is a Notre Dame homer podcast?
Notre Dame. Notre Dame's. You know what? I would put Notre Dame in there. I would put Notre
Are
Dame in
you
the top
saying
five.
that
Like
to appease me?
no, because honestly, it would be better content if I pissed you off. So
You don't wanna see that.
so I mean, I'm truthfully Notre Dame. I think is up there.
Okay.
I would also say I think Montana State has to be up there too. That one was really good, and especially for how cold it was. Like I would not have blamed anybody if they just didn't show up. Like I remember 5 minutes into our show, like I'm looking over at our producer Chris Colonna, and I'm like, I can't feel my fingertips.
Oh my god.
Uh,
That's
and I
how I
had
feel
like
every day
gloves
in the
on.
studio here. They ice me out. They set the AC at 65. Right now, my toes, I can barely curl my toes. They are so cold, Harry. So I feel your pain. Sometimes my nose runs when I'm at work. It is a
Yeah,
hostile
that's
work
tough.
environment.
Got,
So yeah,
got to
I
bundle
know
up.
what it feels like to be at Montana State when it's negative 20 degrees out with the wind chill
Yeah,
at
they're
work.
similar, 65 and -2. So two more, let's say, gosh, it's hard to say because we've had some like duplicates. Alabama was pretty cool
You
this
went there for the
past
Texas game this year.
for the Texas game. Um,
You went to Texas
gosh,
also, or you went to the Cotton Bowl for the Red River
that
Rivalry.
is yes, that is. Can we? I'm going to say so. I don't think this is a very hot take. That is the best
Okay.
neutral site game in North American sports, Super
I
Bowl
don't think that's
included.
a hot take, because a lot of neutral site games are at, like, NFL stadiums where it's very hard to get,
Yeah.
like, the college football feeling. Like, I've been to a bunch of those games, like the one that used to be at the old, before it was Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Georgia
Hmm.
Dome. I've been to, like, AT&T Stadium for college football. I've been to Soldier Field for college football. Like, it just, you don't get the college football feeling automatically just by being in a bit
Yeah.
bigger stadium. So I don't think that's a hot take. So you were there 2 weeks ago. Did you get to try any? We talked to Lucy last week about this, but did you get to try any of the fried butter or the fried uh, corn dogs or whatever they had there?
I didn't really. I had some
Because
shrimp
you're an athlete,
because
Harry. You are not messing with your nutrition plan while you're on the road. Is
it's
that
just
why?
I'm telling you, like it for as much as I travel, the diet and just like again, the hydration, it makes a difference. I'm
All
just
right. All
saying.
right.
But no, I did have some like really good shrimp
Fried shrimp?
because yes,
Okay.
so here's the
I was like, if you
thing,
just
and
have regular shrimp, I don't care.
a lot of people don't know this about Harry Douglas, and he would find it funny that I am sharing this information. I always joke that he is going to eat the ocean dry. That man loves shrimp. So like after our show, he's like, "Hey man, I'm hungry. Like we need to go get something to eat." And so like we're walking around and we pull up the shrimp dock at the Texas State Fair. And so like at the Texas State Fair, apparently I don't know if it's just with them, but like you have to pay with like the little fair coupons. And he's
Yes,
like,
the tickets. Lucy told
we
us
don't
about
got
this.
those and we're not trying to go
Okay.
get them and all that type of stuff like that. So like, we like took a picture with them and like posted on Instagram and stuff like that. And so they gave us shrimps, but like I'm sitting there and I'm like, HD, I'm like, you
Wait,
really want to eat shrimp at like 7 o'clock in the morning?
you paid them in, like, Instagram clout
Yeah.
and it worked?
Oh yeah. They loved it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
I
I
mean,
should try
and
that sometime.
it was great shrimp. I
That
mean, it was
reminds
just
me
a good way to get through the coupons.
I love shrimp. I could probably eat 1,000 shrimp as well. But that reminded me of, did you see the video that went viral of the woman in Atlanta who went to
Yes.
the seafood restaurant and had 48
48
oysters?
oysters.
And her date, like, left before the bill came because he was so, like, weirded out by her eating 48 oysters. Have you been to that restaurant? A, because you're in Atlanta. Harry Douglas is in Atlanta. And B,
Yeah.
have you ever eaten 48 oysters? Raw oysters, I should
No,
say.
I have not, but I also was sitting here thinking like, man, I should just like lie and be like, hey, I'm the guy that left the date.
That would be
But
hilarious.
I've thought about going to check it out. Like, you see people on TikTok being like, "Hey, let's see if I could go eat 48 oysters." Maybe I should do that for like science,
I
Just
feel
go
like
out there and
Harry does
see.
Harry Douglas like oysters? I feel like he could do it
I'm
for
sure
us
he
for
does.
science.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like he'd be down. You know what? He and I should go do it. We should go eat, like, let's set a new record, like, go eat 50 apiece or something like
That
that.
would be a good bit. If you guys did that on TikTok,
Yeah.
I'm with it. You guys do a lot of like Harry versus Harry competitions on Countdown to Game
Mhm.
Day. I think an oyster off would be a nice addition to that.
Yeah. I'd be down.
We have talked all about college game day and just what an absolute maniac you are when it comes to hydration. But we have not yet done the thing that all college football shows and fans do, which is argue about everything that
Yes.
happens in college football. So
Everything.
let's start that now. You went to the Oregon Washington game. I said this weekend that I thought maybe Dan Lanning has set analytics back 20 years by not converting any of his fourth downs. I feel like everyone kind of like is like, all right, like he had the right idea. Let's not give him too much crap for it. I know some people are still Oregon fans might be a little still mad they didn't kick a
Yeah.
field goal before halftime. Where do you stand among all of this and the fallout of them losing the game by 3 points?
It's a big weekend for the traditionalists, isn't it? I mean, because, like, isn't this like the thing that we do, whether it's with like analytics or not? It's one of those things where if it goes your way, you're a genius, and if not, you're the biggest idiot in coaching.
We play the result. Yeah.
I still think he's a great coach. Like, I think he's, well on his way, and if he decides to stick at Oregon for a long time, like, I think that they're going to have a ton of success. Like, because I mean, obviously they're offensively one of the best teams in the country, but like he's also the man that was leading the Georgia defense of 2021. That was the best of all time, probably. So, I it's one of those things that happens, and it's funny. I was talking to a former coach this past week, and we were actually talking about the Mario Cristobal thing, which is much worse. But he was like, dude, there's nothing worse than when you're the guy that ends up in one of those situations, because like the emotional roller coaster that is coaching, like the highs are higher than anybody could ever possibly imagine. And then if you do something as messed up as Mario Cristobal did, which, like, Mario was talking about, I don't even know what to say. What do you say to your players? It's like, dude, like, even if you had something to say, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
Like,
nothing
because it
really.
was just that bad. There's nothing you can
Yeah.
say. I think it's a moment that, it feels probably worse than what it actually is right now, which, I mean, you say that and it's like, all right, well, if Oregon wins that game, they're probably considered top five. But I think he had the right idea. That's kind of like, what matters. I think it's kind of easy to latch on to that after the fact and be like, oh, well, you left all the points on the board that would have won you the game. So they were still in a position to win it at the end, or tie it at the end, I guess. It just didn't shake their way, but it's hard to argue that, hey, like, maybe you should have just kicked
The
those field
reasoning's
goals. But
not
again,
sound. Yeah.
yeah, it's easy to say that after the fact. So, I mean, I see both sides of it.
Yeah, we're I think we're definitely playing the results a little bit because in the moment, I think he even admitted the one before halftime was the one he kind of wished he had back, because if you're playing like like Oregon was going to get the ball back after the half, and he was trying to do like the thing that a lot of college football coaches hammer, which is the middle eight. Like how can you swing the game by being the most efficient, scoring the most points in that middle 8 minutes of the game, like the 4 minutes before half and the 4 minutes after half. And instead of, a 14-point swing or even a 10-point swing, they ended up just getting 7 out of it. And when you lose the game by 3 points, like that's the one people are going to be mad at. But I think it's also like we see this in the NFL so much too, with like Brandon Staley and other NFL head coaches that are trying to be aggressive all the time. And Golic and I have talked about it. It's like, it's not so much like the aggression, it's like the play calling that I think probably
Hmm.
merits criticism. Like if you're going to be the guy that is aggressive on fourth down all the time, like have some idea of like what
Yeah.
is going to get you that extra yard or those 2 yards, and not do what Oregon did, which was call, I thought, like some kind of inexplicable plays on offense, which did not work out. So yeah, you play the result, but also you play like I think maybe make it a little bit easier on your offense to get that extra yard and
Yeah. And
convert
I,
one
I
of
do
them.
think it's easier, especially after the fact. And if you didn't watch the game, because I do think some people are probably getting on him that did not watch the game. Reese Davis and I were talking about this at the airport, and I was like, hey, like, don't you feel like, especially during that first half, because like Oregon kind of really came out in the third quarter and played really, really well and got momentum back. But I was like, when they were down 29-18, it felt like they were down 3 or 4 scores. And he was like, yeah, it definitely felt that way. So I think with that sort of context, like you sort of get why he
For
did
sure.
sort of take
Yeah.
that shot. Like it's not like, statistically they were neck and neck the whole game in terms of yards, but when they were down, it felt like they were down a lot. And part of that has to do with atmosphere, part of that has to do with game flow, all that type of stuff like that. So I think that added context also matters in terms of that decision making.
So in the rest of their season, Oregon now has one loss. So they're like already going to be like the pressure is on. They probably can't lose another game. Obviously, depending how the rest of the field does. But they've got Washington State, Utah, Cal, USC, Arizona State, Oregon State. A couple of those are going to be really, really tough. Washington, on the other hand, they're playing USC down the stretch as well. They've got Washington State, their rival in the Apple Cup, which is the last weekend of the year. They've got Oregon State. They've got Utah. Like both of these teams have more or less a gauntlet coming up. We talk every year about how the Pac-12 always kind of like cannibalizes itself out of the college football playoff because you end up with multiple 1 or 2 lost teams that don't make it in the final four. So, do you expect one of these teams to make it to the playoff, and which one do you think is the most likely to be able to do that? Or is it like Oregon State or USC? Is it a different team entirely?
To me, it's Washington. This was like this past week was their test. Like Oregon was a team to me on paper that if you could get past them, if you look at the rest of their schedule, does Washington have Utah on their schedule?
Yes, I believe so.
So to me,
No,
that's
actually
going to
they don't.
be
They don't have
they
Utah.
don't.
No.
Okay, so like Oregon was the one, because offensively,
Oh wait,
like
I'm
those
sorry.
two
They do.
teams,
They do
they
have
do.
Utah.
Okay, so Utah
I
is going to be
can't
tough.
read.
Utah could be tough, especially if Cam Rising's back and healthy and like looking like himself.
Which he might not
Um,
be. It doesn't seem
and he
like
might
he's
not
gonna
be.
play. Yeah.
No, because
I don't know.
we were wondering if he was going to play in week 1, right? And it's just been like we've been pushing this,
And he
down
went
the
on the
road.
radio last year and was like, or last week I should say, because there has been a lot of pressure for him to play, because Utah's offense has not been able to move the ball very well. And he said it's not just an ACL. Like I busted multiple ligaments and I'm like doing really well in rehab, but like as soon as I'm ready, I'm gonna play. Kind of, I think basically just telling the fans like I'm not like not playing because I don't want to. Like this was a humongous injury that I had last year, so like I'll play when I'm ready.
Which like fans got to chill.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like
Fans in general, I mean, I am the least chill sports fan, so it's a little rich
yeah,
coming from me. But like, yeah, when a guy's injured, it's like, all right, like you don't know what's going on. You can't really make any sort of assumptions,
yeah.
and everyone chill.
Yeah, I really don't think people like realize like what's going on out on the field. Like I feel like everybody that watches football should be granted the opportunity to watch one game from the sideline. I think it would
Oh, it's
change everybody's
terrifying.
perspective on the game.
It's
Yeah.
so terrifying. I mean, you get to do it every week. I've been on the sideline for probably like a handful of games in my lifetime, and every time I see like Joe Alt, like the Notre Dame left tackle, or like one of these like huge linemen walk by,
Yeah.
and then you hear that like the noise that they make when they hit
Yeah.
each other, it is absolutely terrifying. So I
Yeah.
I agree with you. That would be a fun social experiment. Put
Yeah,
fans down
cuz
on the
people have
field just
no
to
idea.
see. It is
No
terrifying.
idea. Especially like
You
NFL, because then it's like
Oh
just
god,
big on
no.
big. Like everybody's massive, everybody's
Yeah.
running sub 5 40s. But I think so. I think Washington already passed their big test, at least for the regular season. Because the one thing that I thought, and I actually picked Oregon to win that game, not because I felt like they were actually the better complete team, but just because they are very good at running the football. And Washington's defense, we know, has been shaky, but they
Mhm.
have specifically struggled against the run. And Oregon's backs combined, I think going into that game, they were averaging something like 8.2 yards per carry. And Washington was giving up 4 yards a carry or more on 51% of run plays. So I'm like, that's going to be the difference in the game, which it wasn't, but they got out of that one alive. I don't necessarily say that they play their best game, but good teams find ways to win. They found a way to win that game. Like they still had to score late. Obviously, the field goal was missed. As long as they, sort of keep it up, like Michael Penix is through 6 games having like a Joe Burrow type season, they could. I think they could do it. They've been, even prior to that game, in my opinion, they've been the best team in college football up to this point. And I just don't think a lot of people realize that. I think Michael Penix has been getting his due because he's been the Heisman favorite now for like 3 straight weeks or
Mhm.
something like that. But I think now people are going to start to finally realize like Washington is legit.
After the break, we are going to continue this college football discussion, and I'm going to ask Harry about a couple of the shocking late game upsets this past weekend. Okay, Harry, you this year you've been to Boulder. You wrote about Houston and their coaching
Mhm.
staff joining the Big 12. And you've also called a game at Coastal Carolina involving those teams. Three of the most insane finishes to games this past weekend. The Colorado Stanford game, biggest comeback in school history for Stanford. The Houston West Virginia game ended on a insane Hail Mary pass. Houston won, and Coastal App State, which was just purely chaotic. So, of those three, which one was the most insane ending to you?
I think for me personally, um, I would say the Houston one was the most jarring. Well, no, the Houston one was the best one. The most jarring one was Colorado because I'm in the hotel, I'm watching the game. I was like, I'm gonna watch this until the end of the half. And like that first half of that game, like Colorado, what was it? Weaver was like literally jogging into the end zone for a touchdown. Like
It was
they were
bad.
like
It
they were
was bad.
beating them up,
I
and
was like,
like they were adding,
Stanford should end their football program. That was I had that thought in
yeah.
the first half.
Like, they were putting style points on them, all that type of stuff like that. And I was like, "All right, 29 nothing, sick, gonna go to bed." Wake up, and, like, I look at my phone, and in our group text for the show, like, Harry Douglas and our producer, Chris Colon, are talking about, "I can't believe that happened." And I'm like, "What are they talking about?" And I saw the score, and I was just like, "You've got to be kidding me." Like, there's no way. And it really wasn't even the fact that, like, that upset is just so surprising. I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, man, the anti-Deion crowd, like, this is their Super Bowl, like, this is
Yeah.
their Christmas, like, this is the greatest day of their year. Like, it's not going to get better than this." Which I also just find, like, extremely weird because if you have followed Deion Sanders' career as a player, as a coach for even 2 minutes, like, you kinda know what you're getting, and it just feels, like, very odd that people are just not used to him by now. Like,
Yeah,
that to me,
well,
that is the weirdest thing about all of this Colorado thing.
I do agree with you that the, like, conversation around all of it is very tedious because it seems like there are people on either side that either, like, hate him or love him that are, like, joining this and not really knowing, like, what's been going on, like, the last 10 years, like, with Deion
Mhm.
Sanders. So, you got to see, like, the Deion Sanders hype up close. You were at game day for the Colorado State game, which looked crazy, like, just the most
Unreal.
gorgeous set, like, the fans were going wild. This was when they were still like, they were 2-0, I think this was week 3. So before, like, they've had, suffered a couple of these big losses, like to Oregon and USC, which they almost came back and won. We'll talk about USC in a second because I can't believe we haven't brought up the Notre Dame game yet. But what has been your perspective on all of this? And like, this game did matter a lot to Colorado. They may miss out on a bowl game now because their second half of the season is going to be like really, really tough. They've got some tough games coming up. So where do
Mhm.
you kind of put all of, like, now that we're through, halfway through the season of Deion Sanders as an FBS coach in the Power Five, like, what's your take on all of this now?
I feel like it's been pretty representative of everything that he's actually done, and I say that in the sense of I've been saying since the beginning, like, they were never gonna be as bad as people were saying, which, like, some people went as far as to say they're gonna be the worst team in FBS. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, even if we're just starting at the quarterback position with Shador, or if we're talking about Travis Hunter, like, people forget how big of a day it was when Travis flipped from
Oh my
Florida
God,
State.
it was crazy.
Like, that was one of the funniest days online ever. And all of the, when we still cared about Twitter Spaces, like, that was an insane, like, that took up my entire day. Like, it was that ridiculous.
Florida
Um,
State fans were like, you're right about Twitter
Livid.
Spaces was such a moment in history for fans coming together to just like have a
Yeah.
crisis.
Yeah. Like,
Ah.
that was, like, literally one of the best moments in that website's history. But I feel like they're at a place where, and he kind of said this a couple of weeks ago, like this is as bad as they're going to get. Like whether you're not people like Deion in Colorado and how they're going about their business, like it's going to work. Like it shows in the results, it shows in the kids that are coming onto that campus now and visiting them. The fact that they did hang with USC, even though their defense is very obviously bad, because your boys looked incredible last week against them, respectfully.
I mean, honestly, like USC's defense didn't look that bad. USC's offense was bad. Like
Yeah,
Notre
their
Dame
offense was bad.
exploited their
That's
offense in
fair.
a way that I didn't even think was possible. But
That's
go
fair. And
on.
I did not watch that game as tight. I just wanted to give you crap.
I can tell you
So
everything that happened. Where do you want to start?
oh,
First
I
drive,
believe it.
interception to Xavier Watts, the safety. Where's number 0? Absolutely phenomenal. I'm just kidding. But go on.
I think Colorado's going to be in a much better place next year. The things that were true that people believed about them before the season was that you cannot be bad on the lines and hide that. Like you
Yeah.
cannot hide behind a bad offensive line. Like you can only do it so much, which like I honestly don't even know that Shador Sanders is getting enough credit for putting up the numbers he has put up and staying healthy behind that offensive line. Like he is running for his life out there every single Saturday. And then the defensive line is just like, man, like, they're not putting pressure on nobody. So, that's just difficult. But I think so far it's been a success for them. I think it shows on the field, oddly enough, even though it's been ugly at times, including this past Friday. But and then obviously it shows up everywhere else. I mean, they got the ABC game this week. Like people want to watch Colorado play football. They want to see what Deion's going to do. They want to see what Shador is going to do. They want to see Travis Hunter play on both sides of the ball, which, like, I think at this point, that's probably my biggest concern with Colorado is like that young man probably didn't need to play all the snaps that he played last week.
Yeah. Well, Travis Hunter, the
And
wide receiver, had a great game. Travis Hunter, the
yes,
cornerback, did not have such a great game. And he's coming off
yeah,
of like a lacerated kidney and is playing like 150 snaps or something like that. It's just, it's crazy to me. But you're right. I think in the sense that like Colorado has made a lot of people look stupid, it has been a success. And like a lot of people have criticized like Dan Lanning, all substance or no substance and all flash or whatever he said about Colorado. It's like, well, that's A, like pretty dismissive, and B, like flash will
mm,
get you some wins in college football these days.
yeah,
Like
well,
having a really fast guy on the field will win you a couple games, and also might win you in the recruiting game, which obviously is more and more important as the years go on. Okay, before we go, Brock Bowers, really bad news if you're a Georgia fan. You're kind of in Georgia country, an hour and a
yep,
half-ish from Athens. Brock Bowers looks like he's gonna be out for 4 to 6 weeks, gonna get ankle surgery. Georgia's offense has not really found its groove yet, and he has been kind of the centerpiece of that offense. They're still undefeated. They still have a 24 game win streak, and they're, I believe, still the favorite to win the national championship. Although Michigan's getting a lot of credit for their undefeated season so far, despite the fact that they have played no ranked teams. But what concern level are you at right now with Georgia without Brock Bowers for the rest of the season?
I mean, we're gonna find out what they're made of. Because even I would say up to this point in the season, they've still played with their food a little bit at times. I think the thing that's really concerning about them is I feel like every year we go into a season with Georgia, specifically the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is there's a lot of potential, specifically at the pass catching positions. And Brock Bowers has been the one guy that has actually panned out. Even with some of their transfers this year, like we're going to see what Dominic Lovett is made of in the next 4 to 6 weeks, however long Brock Bowers is out. Ra Thomas, a transfer from Mississippi State, is not a guy that I would say has worked out in the way that they thought he was. He's extremely talented. I think he's got something like 6 catches and 230 some odd yards this year. They haven't gotten what they wanted to see out of him. The run game's been, good, but I think in terms of if you ask a Georgia fan, they would tell you they would want and expect more. But like when you look at the running backs that have come out of there, like I get it. So to me, like this feels a little bit like pre-national championship Georgia, the last two, where it's like you're a little bit too flimsy. Like this doesn't feel right. Like it feels like somebody's going to get you. However, all that said, still not picking against them until someone just gets them.
Yeah.
Not going to do it because they're too talented.
I'm with you on that. I'm not picking against them. We talked about SpongeBob today. We talked about your hydration plan on the road. We have 3 minutes left, and we still have not talked enough about Notre Dame beating the absolute breaks off of the number one offense in the country this weekend at home. Harry, you said you didn't get to watch too much of it. I watched every second of it twice, watched the replay on Sunday. Just like an absolutely spectacular weekend for me personally. Also, the Steelers were on a bye, so like I am flying high right now. But this is Golic and Smetty. So we have a couple minutes left. Harry, is USC doomed? Is Lincoln Riley the biggest fraud head coach of all time? Is Marcus Freeman the prince who was promised? Is he our savior? Should we build a statue for Xavier Watts outside the stadium? Sam Hartman, can he get a seventh year? Well, like what are your thoughts on this result? 48-20 Notre Dame over USC.
I just, it was a weird result, kind of, because I feel like, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, it has felt ever since the Ohio State game, which like Notre Dame definitely should have won, like that you guys have just been not quite right. But then also it was kind of the perfect situation because it's like, okay, no, somebody's going to get USC. Because they just can't defend. And obviously Caleb ends up throwing three interceptions?
So there's 2 fumbles that Notre Dame recovered, including a scoop and score. Yeah.
You can't hide behind 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the get right game that Notre Dame needed. So like, let's see how far, you guys take it. Cause I still think that they're better than most people give them credit for. I will say that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this particular podcast.
I know that you're partially saying that because you're talking to me and you've seen me scary and angry about Notre Dame football.
I know how to soften blows and not piss you off. But I genuinely mean what I just said. I do mean that.
Thank you.
And it's not just because I'm here. I do think Notre Dame's better than what they've been given credit for, even if they have not showed it for like 2 of the last 3 weeks.
I think they've had a really, really rough 4-game stretch. Not like that it's unfair or whatever. Like playing 4 ranked teams in a row, including a couple of really good defenses, has not been pretty. They haven't had a bye week since they haven't had a bye week this season. So like 8 weeks ago we were in Ireland, okay? And now like this season has felt like an absolute slog. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, enjoy the bye weekend. It is well deserved, especially if you're a player and you're actually playing in the games. It's hard enough for me to watch them. I can't imagine what it's like to actually be out there, but I'm with you, Harry. They're better than people give them credit for. Still have very big concerns about Notre Dame's offense, but the defense looks very legit. So I'm gonna ride this high into the bye weekend. And thanks for coming on to talk about college football with me. I appreciate your time. Let's keep in touch, Harry.
Yeah, we'll do it again soon. We'll definitely stay in touch. Don't be a stranger.